Hi, welcome back to our channel. We are on the topic of developing the virtues of Hormazd and Ameshaspand. Quite an unfathomable topic, but we will cover what we can and what we know. So we are in the midst, or in our final, actually, in our final video of discussing the process of individual spiritual alchemy, which is the conversion of our basic human character into a saintly one and from a saintly one into a divine one. And the reason we do this is because that is our purpose here on earth, our purpose that for which we are sent on earth, the purpose for which all creation was created by Dada Mazda was to perfect any negative energies and perfect them into light, transform them into light, and bring them back to Dada Mazda in a perfect state. So, we have learned that we are but manifestations of positive and negative energies, the laws of Asha and Akka, Asha being divine law and Akka being the opposite to divine law, all are both um, active within us. And what we have to do is overcome the negative through religion, through applying pressure, through the conversion of our character, the conversion of our thoughts, our emotions, our desires into perfect ones, ones that mimic and are parallel to those of the divine entities. And the example that we use in that is that if we had two buckets of water, I mean, two buckets, one had oil in it and one had water in it. If you take the bucket of water and you throw it into an ocean, it becomes completely merged into the ocean, and you can never retrieve that exact same bucket of water back out again. It has merged indistinguishably. Whereas if you take the bucket of oil and you throw that into the ocean, well, it'll just float on top. It will not merge. It will, in fact, contaminate the ocean. And there will be a need to remove that oil again, to reprocess it until it becomes more like the bucket of water that when it's finally thrown into the ocean, it merges. So same thing with our souls. Our souls are and our whole being, which includes our thoughts, emotions, desires, words, deeds, everything. So we learned then that the only way to become the bucket of water that is very similar, that can merge effortlessly into the ocean, is to learn how to develop and mimic the divine divine virtues of the seven Ameshaspands. Now, what are the seven Ameshaspands? The seven Ameshaspands are actually part of Dada Mazda, right? They are Dada Mazda, but they're just emanations from him through which he created all of creation. And these emanations, you can call it emanations of light, you can call it emanations of thought. All of these emanations, just like our human being has a body, has a mind, has a heart, has limbs, has kidneys, and everything in our bodies has a different function, and it keeps an entire body going. Similarly, these seven Ameshaspans emanated from Dada Mazda for the purpose of creation, for the purpose of perfecting all things and bringing them back to Dada Mazda in a perfect state. So these are really in every sense of the word, these virtues are really the divine virtues of Dada or Mazda, just separated into sections, the same way that we would say our mind is there to think and to control what happens in our body. Our heart is there to pump blood. Our blood is there to service our entire body with the right nutrients. Our veins are there to carry the blood. So similarly, uh, the virtues of the divine seven Ameshaspans are actually Dada Mazda's virtues, but we're learning them step by step, and we're trying to inculcate those virtues or the parallel human virtues into our human character, so that in the end of time, when we are perfected, we will merge into Dada Mazda effortlessly, and we will not be subject to continuous rebirth on earth, facing the load of our karmic, um, facing our karmic load and going through weal and woe just for our training. So we saw that, I'll put a chart up here for you. We saw the laws of Mazadat and Auradat. Mazadat were those laws that enfolded spirit into matter. Hence, when we were once with Dada Mazda, we were still in an imperfect state. Any imperfect thoughts, not perfect divine knowledge, anything that had imperfect knowledge, had a negative energy. And what Dada Mazda has done is he has tried to save even the negative energies. He is the savior of even the negative. So even the darkness, even Ahriman itself is, Dada Mazda is saving all of these elements by weaving good and bad together, together and creating what we are today as human beings, woven with positive and negative energies, uh, whereby our souls are enfolded now into matter through the course of time, through many evolutions we've gone through. I don't want to repeat too much, but through the course of time, our souls on the path of Mazdadat have come down to earth to be alchemized, but our soul is now folded into matter, and it is going to be, uh, how would I say, chained, confined, restricted to that matter, or to the negative energies that actually form this matter, until it perfects these energies. It becomes, it perfects the thoughts, perfects the desires, emotions, deeds, everything. And once it does that and converts the negative into the positive, converts darkness into light, then slowly the soul will be on the road back, which is the road of Auradat. And on that road, the laws of Auradata will apply, whereby the soul is then again unfolded from matter and slowly frees itself from its attachment to material, from being bound, not to attachment to materialism, but from being bound uh, to this life on earth and being bound to a body. So we're on that path. We have come down through the path of Mazadat. Now we're in the process of alchemizing our souls, alchemizing our thoughts, our desires, our emotions, our words, our deeds, and moving back to be one with Dada Mazda. That is our purpose. That is the purpose of life. No matter which human being you are, that is the purpose of life. So, um, if you're wondering about where in our religion it says that we merge with Dada Mazda, we will talk about that, but it is in the Gathas Ha 51:3, and it says that, as a person becomes this perfection in thought, word, and deed, and is you know looking at Dada Mazda as the only uh, Lord, or only entity that is all that that person is worshiping, then they will move ultimately towards merging to Dada Mazda. So I wanted to get that out of the way first. So now we will throw that chart back up here of the seven Ameshaspands and see the values and virtues and qualities of those seven Ameshaspans. Okay, so we started off uh, developing the virtues of Aspandamara Ameshaspand, which is what we call Mother Earth, and we developed perfect. We're trying to. We haven't reached all these stages. Just learning about them does not mean that we've reached them. We've actually have to put them into practice and actually um, become the very embodiment of these virtues. So but nevertheless, learning is the first step. And here we are to learn all of this. So Aspandamara Husbands, the virtues that we had to develop and learn from her is humility. That is humility to God, acceptance of his will. But it also means the rejection of this ego and further down that same road of rejection of ego, we learn to reject the idea of self. We realize that there is no such thing as I, that everything is God. So that's a long road in itself, and it's a very long journey. On that journey, we will learn all these things as we learn to alchemize our negative into positive, especially hate into love. Very difficult to do. Good, not too bad if life has treated you well, but very, very difficult to do if you have really gone through a difficult life or difficult circumstances, and to try and find love for somebody that has hurt you, hurt your family, hurt your children, and find that spiritual maturity, that 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 selflessness, that idea of the rejection of ego, to realize that you are here for God's work, that what you are facing is just um, your five senses and the material world that is facing difficulty. But really, what your soul has to do is progress, and that difficulty will all vanish at some point, and you will progress as a soul that has become enlightened. So, in that enlightenment, you have to understand that you have to convert not only your anger, your hatred, your all your negative emotions into something positive, into love. Similarly, you have to convert those who hate you into love. We're all very difficult steps, but nevertheless, the first step in almost all religions, certainly in almost all religions. So the next step, which isn't really one step, we cannot actually attain all the qualities of one Ameshaspand and then move to the next Ameshaspand. It's a little bit of each, and it's kind of a spiraling thing. But since um, we are all individuals and we all deal with it differently, we're just discussing each Ameshaspand separately. So, developing the virtues of Sherva Ameshaspand, we found that what we have to develop as human beings is the tenacity to reject evil thoughts, words, and deeds, um, and the mental strength and alertness to do so. So, what we're talking about here is fortifying our aura with our practice of religion, whatever religion you're in. But in our case, it's Matra Mitra Yasna. The whole practice of our religion fortifies these 16 chakra within us, our Kep, our Tivishi, our Ushtana. Those are our subtle energies within us. And by fortifying that, we are stronger. We are increasing the forces of good within us to overcome, suppress, and even convert the negative into positive. So that was Shervaram assessment. Then we talked about Adibesham assessment, which is really the fire, all kinds of fire. We talked about 16 energies. We didn't talk about them, but we mentioned that there are 16 types of fire that is identified by our religion. Then we talked about Adibes being the divine law. Divine law has 7 components, which we didn't get into, but for now, let us just say definitely divine law, divine truth, divine righteousness, divine order, and all of these things are actually what is working in the universe. The entire universe is running through the laws of Asha. They are immutable laws. And what is the fundamental aspect of that law? What has happened, just like you would see a flame, if you have a fire, you would notice that the center point is the hottest, the whitest, the purest. As you go out, the flame changes its colors. There's blue, or there's green, there's red and orange. And so what happens is that intensity of that flame at the different points in that same fire are different. So similarly, what the laws of Asha do, what Ashavesta does, is it pushes outward from the center of Aura Mazda out all the negative and pulls in the positive. So maintaining that complete, perfect purity within. And we are all on the very outskirts. And that outskirts right now is where we are in this whole map of uh, and Nisti. We see we're on Giti. Same way the laws of Asha work to protect the entire divine realm, and at the same time work to alchemize the likes of you and me into something perfect, into something pure, so that we can actually enter the divine realm. Then we had discussed Ameshaspand or Bahuman, what a lot of people refer to as the good mind, but it should not be mistaken as the human mind, because the human mind is what we have come down here to alchemize. Is it our thoughts, our words, our deeds, our emotions that we have come here to alchemize? So the good mind is not the human mind. The humans are supposed to get to a point where they have Vahuman. Uh, and we have to remember that Ameshaspand or Vahuman is uh, Dador Mazda's divine consciousness. It is an Ameshaspand. We are nowhere near that perfection of an Ameshaspand. But what we have to learn is to develop his qualities just as we learn to develop the other qualities. Now, um, developing the qualities of Ameshaspand is not just intelligence. People mistake, just because Dador Mazda is, the Lord of knowledge, Lord of wisdom. I think what we do is we sort of say knowledge, but we address knowledge as what we go to university to learn. And that's not the same kind of knowledge. So here, what we're talking about is the kind of intelligence, developing the kind of intelligence within you that leads to, first of all, faith, and that leads to your expanding um, your faith, your practice, your devotion to Dada Mazda, and moving down that path, which will ultimately, um, which will ultimately free your soul or lead to Frashogard, as we call it. So then, at the same time, Vahoma Ameshaspand, to be able to receive divine intelligence. First, that whole vessel of ours has to be perfected. It has to be clear of all the negative energies that restrict or cloud divine light and divine guidance that's coming to us. So, as I mentioned, it's like holding a piece of paper up to the sun or a cardboard to block the rays of the sun. But as soon as you poke some holes in there, the brilliancy of the sun's light comes shining through. And similarly, when we start cleansing our character, when we start alchemizing that through the practice of our religion, that light, which is divine intelligence, does come to us, and it does guide us, and it does help us move through our life. But it is not that only that we have to do. We have to, at some point, go back to this where we are at Spondamata assessment and the rejection of ego. So the rejection of ego means rejection of the idea of self. Because right now, everything that we think is a result of our five senses and the perception that there is only three dimensions. Whereas, once we realize that all of this is simply not the truth, if we cannot see our soul, if we cannot see the divine entities that are working around us, if we cannot see the consciousness of the divine entities, if we cannot feel the love of these divine entities, then we are missing something. And hence, breaking free from that and realizing that there's a soul within us which we have kept confound to itself, not allowing it to come out because of our rebelliousness to the very fact of its existence. Because right now we think that we exist, this is us. But when we die, our body is gone, but we still exist. So coming to that realization, when we finally surrender ourselves, when the five senses and the mind and the sense of ego finally surrenders itself to its own soul and says, take over this body, take over this vessel, do Hormazd work. I don't know how to go about doing it. Only then, when the soul takes over our body, takes over control of our body and control of our mind, then we can say that we have Bahuman. So until that point, we really don't have it, but we're trying to get there. We have good intentions, but not Bahuman. Then we talked about Cordad and Amardad. Really, the two go together, like blood in the veins. The veins have to be there to transport the blood to give it nutrition, give your body nutrition and life force. So similarly, Cordad, Ameshaspand, the reaching that stage of Cordad Ameshaspand, Amardad Ameshaspand, I'll deal with them both together here, is like it's like perfecting the crop. Like it's like understanding that Dada Mazda has planted his seed within the soil of our bodies. And right now we've been ignoring that seed. We have given it a loveless environment. It's like putting you know, a fragile flower seed into the desert. We have given it no love, no prayers, no food, no attention. So the whole idea of giving our own soul that attention, that devotion, the love, um, giving it prayers for nutrition, allowing it to flourish within us, creating an environment within our own self, what we call self, which includes our care, our 16 chakra, our desires, our emotions, everything. So creating an environment where that seed is safe to grow and flourish, a positive environment. So that environment, if that environment is antagonistic to the seed, it is not the proper environment. The seed will not flourish and will not grow. So here we are creating an environment where it's safe for this Dada Mazda seed to start flourishing. And when it flourishes, it becomes a miniature replica of Dada Mazda. It itself has all the potential, everything in it, just as a seed of any plant. You will have a plant, even if it's a rose. I have some nice roses back there. So a rose and a seed. So the seed isn't the rose, but it has the same potential to grow and become the rose. So similarly, we have within us the same potential to become Dadur Mazda, but we are just not allowing it to grow. We're not creating the right environment. And that's what spiritual alchemy is all about. It's about creating an environment to allow our soul to grow and become the perfect crop. So just like Dada or Mazda, our soul has to become just like Dada or Mazda, which is very hard to grasp. But at least if we can understand that it has to take on these qualities, become become cleansed of sin, become free of karmic debt. So, free of karmic debt means allowing yourself to pay off that debt, not always being mournful about things that might affect you badly or adversely. Uh, Being happy, in fact, knowing that one debt is paid, one debt is paid, one debt is paid until our balance in our credit balance is in the positive instead of the negative. So here we have talked about Kordad and Amardad, the idea of becoming more and more in a perfect state. So in that state, we're talking about somebody who is um, a saintly person. Okay. And a saintly person is also moving towards that aspect of not having to take a rebirth. So I'll put up the other chart here. So we saw here there was 27 stages of soul advancement. So if we are in stages 1 to 9, which right now we are only in stages 1 to 3, but even a saintly person still has to go through becoming a Narashwan, becoming a saint. And then only when they reach this 10th stage, only then will they not be subject to rebirth here on earth. And they will then move forward from the 10th to the 27th stages. So looking back at our chart of heavens, back at our chart of heavens, we were talking about how our souls will, after death, we will go to Uparidakyu, where Chinwat is located. These are all realms, um, where Chinwat is located, and we will do our work there. And if we are not cleansed of our negative, we will have to take a rebirth. So that is called Tan asak. That means tan. Tan is body, and asak means we still have negative forces within us. And if we are able to perfect those negative energies within us, we become tan pasin. And if we become tan pasin, as we reach the top of Uparidakyu, our soul will judge us. Our soul, it's our own soul, judges and decides whether or not it is fit to advance into the fiery dakyus ahead. So the fiery dakyus, Antare, and Iv, are fiery. And hence, the soul with negative energies will not be able to enter there. But once we reach Tanpasin, which is what we pray for in Hormazd, yes, to put us on that path of Tanpasin, then we will progress through these dakyus. And that is the souls then that have already reached at least the 10th stage of their advancement. And now are severed, their connection to earth is severed. They no longer have to come back to earth. They are now moving forward, but they still have to go through the rest of the stages from 10 to 27. 27 being one with Dadar Mazda, one with Zartos Pegamber, and 10 being that they're still in here somewhere in the three fiery dakyus somewhere. Then we discussed how when the soul reaches the top of IV dakyu, that if we're lucky enough, our soul mate, the other half of our soul, um, male and female, will then be waiting for us. And hopefully, we will have permission to be perfectly, being both perfect, we will have permission to merge and become one whole soul, which is then called Magawan. So that would be a Magawan soul. And the process of rejoining with your higher soul, the one that is perfected already, and us coming to it, that process is called Keethoda. Now, that process happens a lot in our journey, but I'm only talking about it here in one instance, but it shouldn't be taken as it's only one instance. There are many instances where our fragment souls go through Keethodat and become uh, more perfected. So here now are the male and female counterpart souls are now become one asexual Magawan soul. And now that soul, once it is perfected, it can go through this, what we call, it's like a cusp. It's like an impenetrable fiery energy existence that separates the eternal world from the mortal world. So the immortal from the mortal. So here, only once that soul, now free from body, that only once that soul has the right same frequency, same energy as Atasiminokarko, only then can it actually go through Atasiminokarko. And that process is often referred to as, we will be renovated after we go through the trial of molten metal. So here, what happens is as the soul passes through this fiery realm of Atasiminokarko, the soul that was semi-luminous through these lower dakyus, Antari and Ivi, will become luminous. Now, as it progresses through Atasiminokarko, and becoming luminous means that it has now regained or renovated itself and become again perfected in that sense. So that is where Frashogard happens at the top of Atase Minukarko. stage, that at that stage, attaining all this means the soul has attained some now, removed its darkness, and hence it has attained um, divine intelligence, perfection, perfect divine knowledge. And now that it has attained perfect divine knowledge, I'll throw the other chart up here for you. Now that that soul has attained perfect divine knowledge, it can now merge with its higher, um, call it brother, uh, Bodang, which always accompanied the soul. Urvan was always accompanied by Bodang and Fravashi, always protecting it, always guiding it. But until the soul freed itself completely from the darkness, until it became a complete perfection in divine knowledge, divine light and divine knowledge, only then can it now merge with Bodham. So here we have already lost the physical components of Asdavish, Tanu, and Getya. Then we have now, by now, completely eradicated this Kerb, Tivishi, Ushtan up. Those subtle energies have now all been perfectly alchemized, and now Urvan is basically divine perfect knowledge and perfect light, being able then to merge with Bodang. Bodang being, if you had two twins, you can say that Bodang was the perfect twin and Urvan was the slightly imperfect one who had to do a little bit of work. So the Bodang was like a brother waiting for Urvan, helping the brother all the way along, all through creation, all through the life cycles, and now they can be reunited. So at that point, and then of course there's a journey to go back and be reunited, Bodhang and Urvan. When Urvan is finally free to reunite with Bodhang and become one with Bodhang, that is called the Frashogard, where our soul is now liberated. So Urvan is the soul, remember. So our soul is liberated. And once the soul is liberated and goes becomes one with Bodang, of course, Bodang is already perfect divine knowledge and perfect divine energy. And hence it can then merge into the most sublimest light, which we call Fravashi. Now, it will be interesting for you to know that there is a picture that we have. This picture right here. You see Shalaras. Now, this is a hand-drawn picture. Uh, you see Shalaras here as a saintly human being. And the Shalaras could read the thoughts of all things, not only humans, but also animals, all things in nature, plants, animals, everything. So, anyways, Shalaras then is shown here praying to fire, and through his moment of devotion and prayer and attunement to Attas, we see this formation, what we think here is above him. That formation above him is very interesting. Uh, it's what we call the expanded care of a saintly soul. So here, what it means is now that the body is perfected, now that there is no risk of negative thoughts, words, deeds, emotions, desires, nothing. It's all strong, it's fortified. Now the soul is actually free to be one, and it's a kind of entering its own uh, Fravashi, which has always been there to protect the soul and guide the soul. So here we see that the soul is merging with the Fravashi, and what looks like a white cloud here really, I think it's just it's meant to be more uh understood as white light, and even many even perhaps even a very beautiful, magnificent, flowing, merging, um colorful lights that are emerging, because here it is the entire perfection of um the light that is caused by your perfect thoughts, perfect emotions, perfect desires, and moving and flowing all together. So that's really an incredible state to be in. I just wanted to share that with you so that you understand that is what we call when we say that we have that far or above us. That is the state of an advanced soul who has whose soul is now merged and become one with care. So let me come back to that in a minute. We're going to go back to the chart of the seven Ameshaspans and the qualities that we have to attain. So with Hormazd Ameshaspand is just one line, right? We have to attain all of the qualities, obviously, of all the six Ameshaspans, and and become that perfect manifestation, that perfect being, divine being, very similar to the bucket of water, being I mean, very similar to the bucket of water that we can throw into the ocean. Um, Now, that Hormuzd is unquantifiable, unqualifiable. So how do we even try to grasp that sense of being one with that Hormuzd? It's quite unfathomable. But I have got a little mental exercise which I think you could try to do. I'm going to put up this picture here. I don't know who the original artist is of this picture. The picture itself is quite old. Um, and if you are the artist, please do tell me. I'd love to put your name to this. But this picture I find incredibly beautiful. Why? Because if you really want to understand what you have to become, I look at it. Uh, It's the way I look at it in order to concentrate, in order to focus my mind. I'm not saying this is the meaning of this fravashi or this symbol, so don't get me wrong that way. I'm just saying when you just as you would look at a fire, look at a rose if you want to try to meditate or concentrate on something. This is a very good point of concentration because somebody has taken enormous effort to put the 101 names of Dada Mazda in here. Um, and if you look at the picture of Shalaras with his expanded carpet, his soul and his Fravashi being one, try to imagine a state of being where your lower chakras, means your heart is in your 10th chakra, and your lower chakras are no longer pulling you to materialism. Why? Because you've gone through these three stages. Now, I'll use the three bottom tiers of wings as the three stages of first deeds, and then words, and then thoughts. Now, what are these deeds, words, and thoughts? That this steps that we have to overcome, and that is basically um, the deeds are the yasna that we have to do while we are uh, doing our prayers, and even after carrying it on and applying them to our life. That's our deeds. So basically, the development of all the virtues that we just talked about, the mantra, the perfect words are really our mantra. So once you have attained really that level of perfection of character, um, what other words can you have other than God's words? And if those mantra are forever on your lips, then you've reached that perfection of not only your actions, which is the lower thing, lower step of deeds or actions. The second one is the mantra, the words, the very words of our Mazda. If you have prayer on your lips all the time, if you cannot think beyond the meaning of those prayers, think beyond that, then you've really attained a perfect state of matra and yasna. And Vitra, which you will only attain once you attain all the lower ones, right? You'll only attain Vahuman, divine thought, once you have attained the perfection of your yasna and your matra, what comes out of your mouth, what comes out of your deeds. This leads then finally on the path of Ashoy to your perfect thought. And then ultimate uniting with Dadur Mazda. And in that sense, if you look at the in this image, the the figure in here is raised high up, Um, but if you look at older pictures of Fravashis, you'll notice that the head is almost at the top of the wings, and the wings are spreading out from really the shoulder and heart region. And I think that is probably more accurate in my example, though this does not show that. I just wanted to say that for the purpose of my example. So when your own soul is then expanded with what? With the very qualities of Dada Mazda. And if you look at the names, the exoic nam of Dada Mazda here, I'm just going to read from a book here, going in order. Names like Yazid, the one who is worthy of worship, becoming yourself to that degree, all powerful, all knowledgeable, Lord of all, without beginning, without end, stronger, the most exalted, the most innocent, um, attainer of all, upholder of all persons, um, worth reverencing, the bountiful one, um, one who can reach everybody equally, the nourisher, the sustainer, the protector. So, uh, uh, never deceiving and never deceived, absolute and unseen, omnipresent, omnipotent, um, complete of complete, completely good natured, complete, kind, worthy light, pain cure, reliever of affliction, victory over all evil, everlasting, immortal. So I don't want to read it all, go through all the names, but what I'm trying to say here is that actually, as far as we think that it is impossible for us to become like Dada Mazda, the reality is that Dada Mazda's seed is within us. And when we relinquish control to that soul and we let that soul flourish, then you will become a saintly figure and one that is moving towards Dada Mazda with all the qualities of Dada Mazda as you progress. So I wanted to leave you with this one thought. Keep in mind that this is an exercise to help us concentrate our thoughts while we're praying or before praying. Sometimes we have all kinds of thoughts in our mind, but when you use pictures like this, and you apply the thoughts that we have learned, I find that it's very helpful in keeping us focused in our prayer. So I'm not saying that this is the meaning of this picture. I've just found that it is very useful for focusing on. So the bottom three tiers to focus on our three main steps in order to progress with our Humattahuptahuresh or Manashni Gawashni Kunashni, and hopefully becoming saintly, having our soul expand and become the very um, qualities of Dada Mazda himself, because after all, it is the seed of Dada Mazda. And if you notice in this picture as well, you will notice that the fire has sort of like seven um, peaks, which you can concentrate on the virtues of the seven Ameshaspans that we have to imbibe in our life. And what's more interesting is if you apply your thought, um, I have to really commend this artist, but the whole idea of putting this entire picture within an Afghan, and that sort of brings my mind, like I like to concentrate on that when our vessel becomes like Sherever on a saucepan, becomes strong as metal, and it becomes like an African, uh, and it and the fire within us, our own inner fire, our own soul, our own energies within us emanate these virtues that are parallel to the virtues of the seven Ameshaspans shown by the seven flames of the fire here. Um, and in doing so, we see that our soul flourishes and shows the qualities of Dada or Mazda himself. Then I see the one ring in the person's hand, in the saintly person's hand, which in my mind, I like to concentrate that ring as is that ring that's finally our thoughts are become perfected, our characters become perfected, and that ring to me signifies that we have now attained our own eternity. We have now attained the values of Amardad Amasasan, which is immortality. There's no more life and death and rebirth. So I like to concentrate on these things this way. As I said again, don't say that this is the meaning of the Fravashi. But if you look also lower down, you will see a couple of rings around the waist of this person, the saintly person within the Fravashi, and you'll see two little strings or little feet or legs or bird-like legs coming out. And sometimes in older pictures, you will see that those two little branches also have three branches at the very end. So it really reminds me of our kasti, and the very fact that with our kasti is time that kas, it is removing us from the pull of the gravitational pull, spiritually speaking, and also materially speaking, towards materialism, towards earth, and freeing us through our tariqat. So these are good thoughts to think when you are trying to pray and trying to concentrate, because it really brings everything that we've learned in together. So, this really concludes our series on individual spiritual alchemy. I know we've gone through a lot of topics and very deep stuff. Um, the purpose for me doing that is really to help you understand that our religion is really just far, far more than what we tend to minimize it into, just saying we speak good, we far more than just us minimizing it into saying good thoughts, good words, and deeds, and assuming that we are already practicing it. Because we can see through this series how difficult it really is to have good deeds and good thoughts and good emotions, and how difficult it is to conquer those negative ideas. The thought of self itself is very incredibly difficult to conquer. So, but once we do these things, once we practice, we will attain this kind of freedom. And although the practice seems very difficult in the beginning and very ominous and almost inconceivable for us to do, the thing is that as you progress down that road, every difficult step that you take, every difficult decision, every difficult control that you have managed or succeeded in doing, there is an unexplainable sense of blissfulness that accompanies it. There's an unexplainable um, sense of strength that comes to you. And we didn't talk about these things on the way, but this is what draws us and keeps us on that path, because it is really difficult. But it's just as once you experience love, it's you're drawn to that love. You want to experience love. So in the same way, every step that we take, our blissfulness, our contentment within ourselves, our strength, our inner strength, inner outer strength is just expanding beyond any imagination that we could have had. Um, so, so as daunting as all this may seem, and as difficult as all this may seem, the idea here is that every step that you take towards moving on that path, all of heavens and that Hormazd take 10 steps towards you or towards us and help us. So there's always that helping hand up there. We just have to want that help. We just have to want to reach for it in a selfless sense, not always asking just something for us. I know, better job, better life, better partner, better whatever. There's an idea of wanting to be with Dadra Mazda, wanting to be one with him, wanting to be a co-worker of Dadra Mazda. And the way to become his co-worker is to become one with him and do as his Yazids and Ameshaspands do. And every time you do something, even as small as it may seem, every time you accomplish some small task, your your feeling of blissfulness just explodes within you. You think that you can't feel any better, but yet next time there's a more difficult step and you will accomplish it, and your blissfulness will keep increasing. And so I wanted to leave you with that positive thought that really this whole journey is extremely blissful. And this is why saints and sadhus or yogis and all these people, they have no attachment left to the material world. They have no attachment left to the sense of self, because this is just so beautiful. This path is just so beautiful, and they love this path because they've created that Adibesh Ameshaspand within them, the values of Adibesh Ameshaspand, the virtues, where they want to be pulled towards the positive, and they are disgusted and do not like anymore the negative. So this path is not as difficult as you move on it. But the first steps in that humility to accept Dharma's will, in the ability to start um, controlling and rejecting the sense of ego. Those are all very difficult steps. But once you take them, um, the next steps become really easy. Not really easy, but much easier than that first step. And of course, you cannot accomplish this, and you should not try to accomplish this without the practice of religion the way it's supposed to be practiced. That is also a difficult thing. But if you talk to people who are actually practicing, like, um, one person that I like to use is a mobbed that does our prayers in Udwara. It's a very elderly gentleman who has really practiced his whole life doing um, so much of the tariqat, can't do this, can't do this. But he just can't imagine not doing it. To him, everything, to him, we live a filthy life, a disgusting life. The way that he practices is just beyond our capabilities. But once you get to that point, um, there is so much pull. It pulls you towards moving on that path, and you really are disgusted with having to go backwards. You don't want to go backwards. So all these things, as difficult as they sound, they're really very beautiful. And just try to kind of keep this as your sort of mental sort of idea that's at some point my soul has to flourish with these same values and qualities of the Ixoic Nam of Dadur Mazda. And it can only do that once I go up these three steps, these three very difficult steps. But once I do that, my soul will be like just emanating these beautiful rays as of the Exoic Nam, of the values, of the qualities of Dadur Mazda. So if you keep that in mind and keep that sense of perfection and beauty in mind and keep that goal in mind, it will really help you as you move on that path. So I hope you did enjoy this very difficult series on individual spiritual alchemy. I'll try to put up less difficult topics on the rest of my YouTube videos, but do join us and continue to learn and grow from these experiences. Thank you so much. Bye bye for now.